Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show, How We Grow. This is your essential playbook to grow and scale your vacation rental business. With advice and insights from the best in the biz, I'm your host, Lynell Gordon. Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show. Guys, I am so excited today. I have two friends that I've worked with for a long time. I have Desiree Garcia and Maureen Shilling, and they are co-founders of a product called RevMax's. That is a revenue management system unlike any other out there. And they're here today to talk about what's happening in the marketplace, but I want them to introduce each other. They've known each other far longer than I've known them. They're like two peas in a pod. Maureen, why don't you start and introduce Des, and then Des, you can introduce Maureen.
So Desiree Garcia is she's our boss lady. She's the tip of the spear, as I like to call her, and basically the CEO of RevMax. I have known her literally since she was a teenager. So 19 years old, that's when I met Des. Instantly was impressed by her talent and her enthusiasm for revenue management data. And just our paths kept coming and going and coming and going. And throughout the hospitality industry, hotels, vacation rentals, all of that, we kind of brought each other together and in different business ventures. And then about 8 years ago, she called me and she said, "Hey, I've got this thing I'm trying to do, and it was RevMax." And so she and I started that about 8 years ago together. And we developed out the software, and we also have a service. So RevMax is not just a software, but it's a service. And Des is the person who heads up all of that software development. And then I head up the professional services division that provides revenue management service. So she's an extraordinarily talented, bright, creative thinker. And I tell you what, she's fierce. So I just enjoy working with her. I always tell her that she has my other half of my brain, and I've got her other half. And I think she phrases it a little differently. I'll let her give the train phrasing there. But yeah, she's just an impressive person to work with.
She's brilliant. She's quite a brilliant woman. She is. And you are as well.
Thank you. It's been quite the journey for sure. But yeah, I've known Maureen for a very long time. I remember going into school because I was in college, and they talked about the different positions in the industry, and revenue management was one. And I was working at a hotel at the time, and I was like, what is this revenue manager that everyone speaks of? I've never heard of them. And I asked our manager, I said, "Do we have a revenue manager here?" And they said, "Yeah, it's Maureen." I said, "I need to meet her. I need to meet this person." And I was just already, blown away with just what it was in general. Then Maureen was my mentor for a very long time in this space. And like she said, we've kind of ebbed and flowed with things, and moving from Florida to Dallas to Colorado to everywhere. We've definitely worked together and conquered almost everything in our path together. I do tell her that she is the one who keeps us on the tracks, right? So if we're the train, I can't do what I do unless I have the tracks, and she lays the tracks. And I say, "I'm going over here." She's like, wait, hold on. We need resources. We need people. We need the process. So I couldn't be where I am professionally, system-wise, everything without her. And it's been a great journey.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That is really awesome. You guys have always, you've always worked really well together, and you've created an incredible platform. And you deal in information. You know how you read books about people, they call it dealing in information. You deal in data and real life data that changes the lives of property managers. I mean, you counsel them, you teach them, you train them, property management, and you do a whole lot more. But let me ask you this. It's 2025. What is happening in our marketplace? What do you guys see?
Yeah, the one thing we can bank on is that change is always going to happen. And I think specifically in vacation rentals, it's been very status quo for a very long time, right? And it's a business that has been passed down from generation to generation. It was like, just keep it going. Don't worry. Just keep everything the same, slight increases, slight adjustments here and there. The process works. Then we got hit with COVID, and that totally blew up the process. And now, since COVID, nothing has been the same. So we have new owners, we have new leadership, we have new owners of the businesses, of course, but also owners of the supply, right? The same human who owned the home before for 25 years now sold it to an investor. And now the investor has different goals than the owner did. And so now the property managers have to adjust to that. In addition to that, there's a lot going on technology wise, right? So you have AI coming into the marketplace, you have pricing automation coming into the marketplace, you have all these new tools in the toolbox that are available. And in addition to that, now we have economical changes specifically in 2025, right? So nothing has been consistent for the past 5 years now. Nothing has been, okay, we'll just do what we did last year. No, we can't. And for the PM now, I think one thing that helps PMs get from point A to point B, they have to change. They have to adapt. They have to do things differently. And there is that old phrase, if you continue to do what you've done, right, you're never going to get different results. So we want different results. We have to do things differently. And not so much differently than the industry, but different against ourselves. So if we weren't marketing before, we need to market now. If we weren't on distribution channels before, your Verbos, your Airbnbs, your Booking.coms, your Expedias, all of the brands, all of the major channels, might be a time to start entertaining those shelves for your product.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the challenges that to Des's point, like not everything's different now. And so one of the challenges that we have in the revenue management or data world is the fact that, everybody was after COVID, they were like, what do we benchmark against? What are we, like, we can't compare to last year because last year was this anomaly. And then it was like, well, the next year it was like, well, we can't compare to last year because last year was still an anomaly. And so on and on we go. And then it was, well, let's compare to 2019. Well, then 2019 gets to be, 4 years in the past. And then it's like, well, that's not really relevant because we've had inflation, right? So there's this interpretation of the data question there that that's hitting us also with all of this. And so that becomes sort of where that art of revenue management comes into play.
Now tell me a little
Absolutely.
bit about, so what is happening, and is it geographically based? Are we looking at changes and market changes that are happening geographically, or is it happening all over?
Well, okay, so we did have an enormous supply issue. When COVID took off, people were making a lot of money. And so every podcast you'd listen to was get into short-term rentals. This is where you can make great money. And people were like, okay, I'm all in. So they were competing against each other for the real estate. So they were buying at premium real estate prices, getting into short-term rentals, and they were making good money and they were making their mortgage payments and everything was great. And so some of these locations just boomed as far as their supply. At the time, there was enough demand to keep up with that supply. But then as the water started to recede, people started to realize, oh, wait a minute, my profits are going down. And wait a minute, maybe I'm not even covering my mortgage at this point. And so then it becomes sort of the old adage of, what's the number one rule in real estate? It's the location, right? So the best inventory wins out. If you go from 100% occupancy in the marketplace, it can fill all of your inventory down to 70, then at some point, 30% of the inventory is consistently sitting empty. And so then you had, over the past couple of years, a lot of people just saying, well, maybe I'll get into long-term rentals, repurposing their inventory to be long-term rentals, when maybe it should have been a long-term rental all along because it was a townhouse or something and not positioned necessarily perfectly to be a vacation rental. Or they would start to take midterm rentals, or they just decided to sell the property, right? Like, oh, well, real estate's still doing pretty good. Let me just sell the property and get out of it. So then you had supply changes as well. And so We started to settle in 2024 into a place where supply was starting to come more into balance, but not in every market. Some markets, it was like the rug was pulled out from under the vacation rental space, right? And other markets where they had, less supply, it was more stable, like Outer Banks, for example. Like it was a very stable market. Some of locations in California, they had supply restrictions. And so because of the supply restrictions, it created stability there. And, so that you didn't have necessarily the same oversupply of vacation rental inventory.
Yeah. So I think too, it's more so, or so to answer the original question was, is it everywhere? It's everywhere, yes, but it's everywhere almost also for different reasons, right? Because in California, they implemented the longer term stays, right? So that's going to offset some of that supply. We had the storms in Florida, which took out some destinations all in all, and that took them off the shelves for a little bit, which allowed compression to move up the coast and different things. So, and not too long ago, we had the panhandle of Florida have an impact as well. So again, it kind of just goes to that everything's changing. There's change across the country. It's not just one reason that's changing everything. And then we have supply issues, and now there's administrative changes that are happening and that have happened that have impeded into international travel. It has impacted domestic flights, right? I don't remember the statistic, but when you have a significant amount of government employees, right, being laid off, well, where do they spend, right? They spend in certain parts of the country. They travel to certain parts of the country. So when their position is gone, that business government travel is gone, that base business for those hoteliers out there, right, that have your specific government rates and your employees and your wholesale or contract business layer, that's gone, while owners still expect to see the same revenue, which means higher rates. If you don't have the occupancy, then everything else goes up, which is why we're seeing flight prices not come down, which is why we're not seeing, international deals as well, which is why we're not seeing the spiffs or the incentives to travel as much, and why a lot of bookings are coming later. And
Right,
why
the
is that?
booking window.
Still
The
gonna
booking
run.
window kind of just shrunk just a little bit, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're still seeing that everywhere. So, here's a question. So, what advice would you give, Des, to property managers who are looking to manage their revenue wisely? What advice would you give them?
So this is where we got to think outside the box a little bit, right? So in this aspect, is it price? The only way a revenue manager can maximize price is when there's demand. And when there's not the demand, then it's harder for the revenue manager to adjust prices and get that conversion, right? Because I could price everything for $1, but if nobody's going to my website, then it's not converting. So price is kind of the last thing. So we have to look at demand. Part of demand, because again, now, as Maureen mentioned, there's a ton of supply changes are shifting, demand is down. What else can we do if it's not a rate game? So this is where we challenge property managers to look at policy, to look at, if I just know, let's use the scenario, my household just got laid off. I cannot book this vacation in 6 months because I don't know if I'm coming. I don't know for sure. If I know that there's word in my division that could be layoffs, I'm not booking in advance. We're going to wait. If I'm going online and I just go to a website, if I want to book your vacation home today, what is that going to cost me? Is that going to cost me 50% of my booking? And am I locked in with that? Right? So versus your neighbor who says, no, just give me 25% today and you could pay me the balance 2 weeks out. Or there's an insurance that I can buy to let me get out of this in case I can't come or in case my situation happens or whatever the policies are. My point being there is look at policy, look at how competitive you are in the marketplace, or even outside of that, what can you do to allow customers to book and not have remove the hurdles, right? Remove the barriers to book, make it affordable for them, give them the flexibility if they should have to cancel. Otherwise, we're going to end up waiting to the last minute. And then what does that happen? When distressed inventory is available, prices drop even more because owners are like, I'll take something rather than nothing. So how do we make the purchase okay in advance?
Oh, that's excellent. I'm going to mention two things based on what Jez just said. If you find yourself in a market like this, guys, where you see that booking window is shrinking, and you're deciding that maybe you do want to do some of these policy changes, look at CFAR, which is canceled for any reason by Rental Guardian. Look at that insurance. It is the best out there, and people, in this particular case, we're looking at something that will do that. That's a tool. Another tool that you want to look at for revenue management of your own property management company is always the Rental Guardian PPP. And if you don't know what that is, go take a peek at it. It's a great way for you to make a bunch of money as a property manager. It goes directly to your bottom line. So those are two things that I might suggest here. So what other kind of barriers to booking, guys, can we move around?
The other piece is also, if it's not price, can we do a value add? Right? What kind of value adds can we bring to the customer? And in the past, we still do, but with luxury markets specifically, we can do A/B testing, right? And we say, okay, it goes back to, hey, I have a 4-night minimum. Do I sell 25% off, or do I give a free night, right? Buy 3, get the 4th night free. Well, the math on a 4-night stay, that's the same.
Right.
But what does the market entertain? And at the same time, how much are cleaning fees, right? We did a test and we did this on the West Coast and the East Coast in the luxury market. And we said, we did the 25% off. It didn't really move the needle. We gave up to a $250 cleaning fee, which is less than 25% off, mind you, and sold like hotcakes. And we're like, wow, people didn't even like the same offers. If you go to the deals page, they're right next to each other. 25% off meant more cash in their pocket. Everything was the same. The only thing was one offered a cleaning fee and the other one didn't. They took the cleaning fee. We did a similar test now to my other client on the East Coast and said they were having trouble getting the reservations. We said, what if you did a cleaning fee credit? Same thing. They did the percentage off, didn't move. They did the cleaning fee, it sold. They did other value adds, like added pool heat, that sold. Customers seem to want that tangible object because they are probably keen to the fact that I just increased prices just to decrease them if they're shopping, right? And they're watching the rates. So now that they have something tangible that says, hey, this is a hard value I can automatically remove, even better. So it's, again, thinking outside the box. It is being flexible, right? I think probably the podcast name should be change. Like that's the key word. That's our word of the year. What can we do differently to get different results? And it's being creative. It's working with the marketing team to get the message out. If we don't have a marketing team, we might want to look at somebody who can just quickly do the creative, right? And invest in that because there is an ROI with those things.
This episode of How We Grow is sponsored by RevMax, the premier full-service revenue management system. Built for vacation rental managers who are looking for a market edge, RevMax offers data-driven tools and services that will increase revenue and drive more profit. Connect with their revenue management experts at getrevmax.com and discover their full-service revenue management solution. I love that. And I love the fact that I just want to say the bottom line is that you guys make more money for the people that work with you. I know that personally. I know that my family works with you and have sung your praises forever. So they were very Very grateful for the intro there. And guys, if you're having some trouble as vacation rental manager, if you're having some trouble with your filling your weeks or with your pricing, or if you're having trouble getting to the revenue spot where you need to go, these are great people that you can talk to about it, who can help you get there. Maureen, what are your thoughts on the fall? What are we looking for as we come up on the fall of 2025? What is the market going to look like? Any ideas?
So there's a lot of things affecting the economy right now. A lot of decisions being made that we're all watching to see if what's going to stay, what's going to go, and then how are people going to react to it, right? Because people go through that fight, flight, or freeze, right? So they're either going to flight, which is like cancel everything, stay put, don't travel, or they're going to like watch and wait. Like Des said, like the booking window will get closer just simply because people want to be sure they have the money to spend before they commit to spending it. And so, people typically, if they're booking 90 days in advance, we might see that it's a 2-week booking window. I have one client that's like, oh my gosh, like the last minute sales when we look, because we look at the data in terms of not only what booked, but when will they be arriving in the future and how is that different? We always give it context by comparing it to some time in the past, like last year. And how has that changed? What we're seeing is like the 14-day booking window is spiked up in sales. The total amount of sales is still the same, but it's coming in for the next 2 weeks. It's not going into the outside of 3 months in advance. And so those numbers are down. The numbers close in are up. And so there is the whole game of chicken here with pricing of, well, how comfortable do I feel with waiting? How confident am I that business is still going to be here? It's still going to come. It's just going to come when people are more comfortable. And right now, people just are not comfortable booking for further out in advance because there's too many unknowns, right? Things are still shifting. Like Des said, the word of the year is change, like everything's changing. And so, what we need to do is just give the numbers context. The data may still look very similar, but like I said, when those people are arriving may be different. So watching how the data is moving so that you can have that context of, okay, the past 4 weeks, the past 6 weeks, or whatever the time might be, my booking numbers that are arriving within the coming 2 weeks are just fine. I'm not getting this stuff further out. This is probably what's going to happen week over week because I have enough data points now to show that that's the trend. That's going to be my trend. And so what am I going to do with my rates? How am I going to market? And what am I going to do with my pricing? You may decide as a team, I'm pretty comfortable with holding strong on the pieces of my inventory, the pieces of my portfolio that would normally perform pretty well. Whereas maybe there's other pieces you're willing to let go at a discount because they struggle even close in. And so you may say, you know what, I need to, if my demand goes from 1,000 units being sold in my market per night to now at 25% drop, so now there's only 750 that are coming into my market per night, that's a smaller amount of market share, right? That's a smaller amount of market for me to grab a share of. And so I want those underperforming properties maybe to get those early discounts to sell earlier, which I think was what Des was mentioning as well. And then those pieces that I'm more confident in, I can say, well, I have the data points behind me to say that I can probably wait on those before I'm starting to reduce my pricing and, hold so that I can fill up with those at the price that makes more sense for that type of inventory. So you're not like losing revenue just because of fear, right? Because people will hold off on booking because of fear. You don't also want to have a fear response because then that's just everything's kind of feeding into each other.
We had a recession in 2007, 2009, somewhere between there, like 2008. I remember that Scott Leggett was managing a large property management company, and he's a guy who's now doing a whole bunch of stuff with Inhabit. Really, really smart guy. You guys know that. But in 2007, he was managing a large property management company there on the Outer Banks, and July was not filled. Now, guys, July was always filled, but July was not filled. And he said, I remember we had this long discussion about what we thought was going to happen, was that the booking window, which was really long at the time, you guys know it still is in that area, it can be, especially for larger houses. The booking window was really long, but it was really shrinking because of the recession. And he chose to keep his pricing steady and made a killing in July because of it, because he didn't discount. He said, I think that people are going to come. The booking window is just going to be changing there. And he was 100% right. And I think a lot of what you're saying is similar to some of that. When there's so much uncertainty in the market with all the things that have been happening with our marketplace and the tariffs and how that's done some short-term, hopefully short-term affecting of our economy. I hope that in the long run, that's going to work itself out much better for us, God willing. And if some of the economists that I follow are right, I think that the advice that you're giving to maybe use some of these triggers, like the cleaning fee or the added pool heat, something tangible that's a hard value that might change the needle, might be a good idea, to come to some of those types of things right now. Let me ask you this, either of you guys, what's the biggest mistake you see property managers make this year? What's the biggest mistake you've seen people make this year or last year?
I think people making assumptions instead of looking at the data. I think that there's a lot of emotion right now. And if people are going off of their feeling instead of really kind of checking in, like logic checking with the data and saying, okay, is what I'm feeling actually true? And then like measuring it like week over week, like just being consistent, even if it's just 10 minutes per week, just checking in with the data. I think that can hurt people, is having that emotional response.
Mhm. I think also not understanding their own data, and not in the sense of what Maureen was talking about, maybe more so of their own inventory, right? Like understand who books what bedroom size. Where do those people come from? Because if you're to Maureen's point, if you're assuming or you're emotional about a certain subgroup of inventory, right, then you're going to make probably not the most logical decisions. And without understanding kind of all the cards on the table, it can be a fast fall to the bottom, right? And, we talk a lot about internally, or I mean, within RevMax, right? We'll talk a lot about organizing your data and having good data organization. And what that means is having your inventory organized in a sense of, I promise you guys, if you subset your inventory and you start making like I'll just give you 6-bedroom ocean fronts with a pool, 5-bedroom ocean fronts with a pool, 5 bedrooms that don't have a pool, whatever your categories are, I promise you, when you start to pull the layers back, you will identify very distinct trends in between the data. When you can understand that, it then allows you to make very strategic decisions for those data sets, right? Like Maureen was talking about earlier, you want to, your lower priced product, you want to sell first at that discount. It's already distressed. Perfect, right? Now, what does that mean though? Right? If I'm used to it being 50%, then my goal should be for that inventory to be 50%. If my ocean fronts are supposed to be 80%, then my goal should be 80%. And get to those hard goalposts, because just saying, oh, it'll come, and being vague and not really understanding what that quantifiable number is, that's difficult for anybody to perform up against. Number one, you just want to make sure you understand as a PM what the numbers mean, right? So I get this a lot. People will say, well, it's fine. It'll come. I'll just, it came last year. Okay, well, you do recognize that last year you only got to 70% occupancy, and now you have a budget this year of 90%. So how do you expect not only to get your 70%, but also an additional 20% when you haven't done anything different? There's less demand, right? There's more supply. you're not doing anything to increase your exposure. You don't want to do a race to the bottom. If you're going to hold price, perfect. But understand that that may not get you to that goalpost of 90%. You may be stuck at 65%, right? It all just depends. So I think understanding what your hard, tangible goals are, right? And not vague as, it'll just come. Like, what is that? What does that goalpost look like? And then work backwards in putting a strategy together to achieve those numbers.
I love
I had
that.
I had one client who did a rental projection, right? And we're like, we're gonna do a rental projection. I was like, okay, perfect. This is great. I'm gonna mix two stories here, so into one scenario. But it's like we have one rental projection, and that's great. But if we don't, what are your rental projections against? Are they against other management companies? Are they against other individual owners? Are they against other management companies that have a $100,000 marketing budget? Are they against other companies that don't do anything and they're just on the shelf? What are you really competing against? Because the days of putting it on an Airbnb or a Vrbo and it just filling are no longer.
I love that.
That is,
I think you should repeat that. I really do. I think this is important, guys. And because a lot of people built their business on that. But would you repeat that, Des?
yes. So when you're doing a rental projection, right, and you see what the market is performing, who are you comparing against? Because it's no longer the days of just putting your listing on an Airbnb or a Vrbo and it just filling. You just have to put it there. You have to understand, are you comparing against a professional property management company that has a $100,000 marketing budget that's going to go behind this listing? Or are you comparing it against just somebody who listed it on Vrbo, right? And how long, or what has that trend been for the past couple of years, right? What efforts of revenue what efforts in operations were being numbers that you're comparing to? Because it's not the same. We work with a number of marketing managers, others do not. There was,
I think either I'm frozen or she's frozen. Now
I was for,
I don't know what will come back, but we'll just you're muted, Maureen.
We didn't hear the
So-
last part of what she said.
Yeah, let's talk about the last
You were
part again.
frozen.
That's fine.
okay. So it's important that the operations and the effort into a rental listing is compared to get the revenue results, right? We work with companies all day long. Some of them have marketing managers, others do not. Some of them have marketing efforts, others do not. And it really does show in the results. So it's important to know what your data is doing. It's important to understand how you're going to get to your revenue goals.
That's good advice.
Yeah, you definitely want to also leverage your database lists, right? So that's something that if you spent all this time and you've been so busy just managing the operations that you've built up the database lists, but you haven't really leveraged them in marketing, now is really the time to start being creative and dusting off that list and maybe even segmenting it into how much do people spend, how far away are they, what time of the year do they like to come, how many bedrooms do they get, and doing targeted marketing that's specific to them. Because if we speak directly to what their normal purchasing patterns are, we're more likely to get them to engage with the content that we send to them. So, and then if we can get in front of them before they start shopping on Vrbo, we're providing them with the answer. And maybe the answer that like, hey, do you remember you stayed at this property last year? It's available again this year. Like come back. And you're just making it easier for them, and you're kind of reclaiming that customer for your own business. A lot of people, I work with some companies that have enormous sizes of databases, and I'm thinking to myself, this is almost like another distribution channel because of the size of their database list. And if they were to treat it in the context of it being it's like a distribution channel for them, and really utilizing that, that can be really important, especially when you don't want them to go to Airbnb and Vrbo because there's so much supply right now. And if you have contracting demand, you might lose them when they get there.
Oh, that's great. So if people wanted to reach out to you, if they had questions about revenue management and they just wanted to talk to you about it, are you guys available? How would they reach you?
So they can email us info at getrevmax.com. So info at getrevmax.com. And that will come to both Desiree and myself, and we can answer whatever questions they might have. Yeah.
You're not going to charge them $1 gazillion just to talk to them the first time. I know that.
No.
No, you've given so many free advice. You've given so much free advice to people that I know. I really appreciate all the wealth of knowledge that you bring to the industry. I honestly think you're two of the brightest stars in vacation rentals. I am just so thrilled to have this to talk to both of you. I really am, and I'm so glad you took the opportunity to talk to people. Is there anything else you'd tell vacation rental managers right now?
Well, I would say that just like the good advice when you're dealing with the stock market and people say, don't let cooler heads prevail, like just don't maybe make drastic moves that could cost you later on. And the same, I think, is true when we're dealing with pricing or revenue management or, those types of things, or even employee management. Just kind of watching, using data, and patterns in order to make informed decisions so that we have the long-term interest of the company and the long-term interest of our portfolios and our owners at heart. That can be really important so that, even if we have a dip, that we're coming out on the other side and we're strong.
I love that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I would say just stay flexible, right? Be creative, think outside the box. And it's not always price. Look at nightly minimums, look at turn days, look at value adds, look at marketing efforts, right? There's a lot of different levers within your business and within your control. Pricing is ultimately the last thing that you have to adjust if you're doing everything else in your revenue management ecosystem.
oh, I love that. I really do, because I love that because it's truth. And I don't think we think about that when we think about revenue management. I think we think the first lever is going to be price, but it really is not. It's like you said, it should be the last thing we talk about after we've gone through our marketing plan and set our goals and put a plan together on how to get where we're going. Then it's the price at the very end of that rainbow at the bottom. So thank you so much, guys, for being with me today. I know everybody will love this. This is like one of my favorite topics to talk about. And I know it's one of your favorite topics too. I know you guys have been in it for a long time. So this is one thing. Maureen, how long have you been in revenue management?
23 years.
And Des?
Less than her. Like, I don't know. What is it now? I don't even know the math.
27.
Probably
It's 20.
Yeah.
20 plus.
I'm sorry,
So-
it's like 18.
18
It's 18 or
plus,
19,
I don't even
something
know
in
how
there.
Like you guys have got people put this together and they do these things. You've got about 40 years between you on revenue management. You've got a lot of knowledge. Think about how long it took to learn that and what you guys are doing today. I'm very excited for the future for both of you. I think RevMax has really made a difference in the lives of property managers. And I hope that people will continue to take a look at it and recognize it for what it is. It's not an instant thing, guys. It's a plan. And you're putting together goals, and they're really setting the stage for success. It's not an instantaneous thing. So if you're looking to get help, reach out sooner rather than later is my advice. So
Yes.
thanks.
Lynell,
Thank you
this
guys.
was fun.
It's
This
a
was
lot of
fun.
fun.
Thank you for having us.
It's a great fun topic too. This episode of How We Grow was brought to you by RevMax. To find out more about how RevMax can help to grow your vacation rental business, visit getrevmax.com. Make sure to search for How We Grow in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at Inhabit, thanks for listening.